I wanted to elucidate this epiphany that I had about the current state of AI relative to we in the public. And it's a relatively simple argument. There's one thread that's long-standing for me, and the thread is, wait a second, they vacuumed up all of the stuff that we have said and done anywhere that it got recorded.
Yep.
And they trained their AIs on it. And it would be hopeless to try to figure out, if the AI comes up with something useful, who actually added the nugget that caused it to be so and isn't going to get paid or remembered or anything else, right? So there's one way in which there's an obvious intellectual property violation here that is the result of the fact that whatever intellectual property laws we have were written in an era where this was an inconceivable state of affairs. So it's a loophole that just comes from the fact that the rights you needed to be granted were not granted because the circumstance in which you would need them was inconceivable.
I will say there's a tiny bit of legal activity in this space.
Oh, I know.
That we're aware of because we have a recent book out that is part of a class action suit that's massive. It's got God knows how many tens or hundreds of thousands of books that were used. I think in that case it's Anthropic, but that's books. Books is easy. Books is countable and quantized and and easy to look at.
Totally.
And the rest of all of the content that we are generating, which is way more than what's in the books, is presumably off the table in terms of any kind of legal protection.
It's inconceivable.
And the protection that those of us who wrote books is going to get is maybe a tiny bit of money afterwards. That's it.
but even
Maybe.
then, right? An influential book that then gets talked about across all of the social media platforms can effectively be reconstructed by an AI, so it
Yeah.
can do it without having its fingerprints on it. This is hopeless with with the law in its current state to address it, and I don't think there's any. It's very hard to imagine what you do going forward. I believe we should have a digital bill of rights, and that our intellectual property ought to be addressed in there. But how to address it isn't even obvious.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the argument at hand. So on the one hand, you've got the AIs hoovering up all of this product of human intellectual activity, right? And then regurgitating it, but not really just regurgitating it, actually using it as the material of, useful, coherent thought, producing what appears to be thoughtful insight that is really the result of having scooped up all of these insights and then making the emergent property of it as the product. So here's the point. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need. Okay? They've taken from each of us according to our ability, right? People who say things that aren't very useful aren't going to get integrated into these models at a high level, and people who say things that are particularly insightful are going to have their stuff utilized because it's going to result in a better product, which results in this thing being saleable. To each according to his need. Nope. You're going to have to pay for your level of access to this thing. We've all put our heart and soul into it, whether we intended to or not. But you are going to have to pay a private entity in order to access the product. So my point is, it has the worst element of communism, from each according to his ability. So the point is, those who are highly productive will have all of their product loaded into this thing, and those who are lazy will have nothing useful loaded into it. And so it will steal from people in proportion to their contribution. And then we are going to be charged for our level of access. To each according to his need? No. You may need top-level AI. You may have done high-quality work that got ingested into the AI and is therefore serving other people, and you may need top-level access that you can't afford to buy. Sorry. So this is why I say it's degenerate intellectual communism. It has the essential element of communism, from each according to his ability. You will invest in this thing and you don't have a goddamn choice about it. But your needs, unimportant.
Well, in the phrase, it's brilliant. The phrase that you're quoting, from each according to his ability to each according to his need, is of course not ever what happens. This is why we are told things like, well, communism has never been tried, has never been successfully tried. It's like, no, it's been tried and tried and tried and tried. And what you've learned is that it does not work and does not work and does not work and will not work. Because what always happens is what you were pointing out. So it's degenerate intellectual communism, as you say. It's also applied intellectual communism. It's intellectual communism as opposed to like the physical labor as was originally imagined. But it is how it will always work in application. The theory is very sweet sounding to those who have not become familiar with it, perhaps, but it never actually directs to those according to their need. What we see is a lot of shenanigans around pretending to protect the very lowest of the lowest. But actually what we have is the enriching of the already rich.
Yeah, and in fact, not only does it not achieve the distribution to the people according to their need, but game theoretically, it takes one or two sentences to explain why it becomes inherently unproductive. So it starts from the premise that civilization produces stuff and we should distribute it according to need. But the point is, civilization produces stuff because people have an incentive to. What's the incentive? I live better if I produce things. But communism...
So hold up. You are not at the moment talking about what almost everyone talks about when they discuss the failure of communism, which is that cheaters evolve. Any cheater in a system will destroy that system. You are talking about a more subtle and actually more fundamental problem, which is that it disappears the incentives to be excellent.
100%. It not only that, but stated plainly, Marxism punishes the productive and rewards the lazy. In that circumstance, what do you expect to happen?
Yeah.
It's paying you to be lazy, so everybody's lazy, and you have a collective action problem where nobody has the incentive to produce if everybody else is going to take, so everybody just takes. And what do you get? Like supermarkets with no food in them.
Yeah.
Right? That's the product.
Yes, we're distributing what there is, which is nothing.
Which is nothing.
No one is producing anything.
Right, because the point is, and actually, hey, you who live in West Coast cities, you are accepting a vision of how things should run based on a fairy tale that, from a game theoretic perspective, literally takes one sentence to challenge, right? How are you going to build a Marxist utopia if the most fundamental thing about it is self-destructive, right?
Well, it's magical thinking in so many ways, and there are thousands of clips out there of confused people on the streets having, a microphone put in their face. Like, what do you think about the fact that, the rich people are leaving, or, the businesses are closing, all the office space is empty. It's like, well, we'll just, we'll fill it and it doesn't matter. And like, we'll live the good life without all those horrible people. Like, and where do you think the stuff came from?
Right.
Who made the life good here? It is utterly magical thinking that the communists engage in.
Right. And on the flip side, mind you, two liberals here talking about the way these things work. On the flip side, a civilization which allowed you to enrich yourself by producing wealth. What does that system do? Well, if properly administered, it causes everybody to get wealthier because the incentive to produce something of value is high, right? Now, I could go on for literally hours talking about market failure and rent seeking and the fact that a lot of things that look like they are productive of wealth are exactly the inverse. It is not impossible to make a fortune destroying wealth, right? The slice of pie that you get access to gets bigger as the overall pie shrinks. That is a very common way of making money in our system. But if you address that problem, then the point is, yeah, people getting rich drives them to create wealth from which we all benefit. That much is true. So what you really want is you shouldn't be able to get rich destroying wealth, right? It's not possible to do that perfectly, but you should want a system that basically requires you to produce wealth in order to get a disproportionate share because it makes us all richer, right? It's good. That's what the market is supposed to do. Rent seeking is destructive of that goal, right? But Marxism is incoherent, right? It doesn't even have that much logic to it. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting realization.
I agree. So it's the model by which AI is being enacted on us. It's not that AI inherently is this. It is the way that we are, apparently the inevitable now way that we are experiencing it.
Yes, it's the way it is being deployed and the way it was done very suddenly. Notice that most of what AI is ingesting was written in a world that there wasn't an AI, right? Or a meaningful AI. So the point is, oh, well, I didn't write that expecting it to be ingested. Maybe I would have kept it to myself, right? But, okay, it's going to ingest all of human knowledge, including everything each of us have produced. And then it's going to be the smartest kid in the room, right? And I'm going to have to pay to hear what he has to say. Like, okay, something went wrong in there. And the idea that actually, if what it is doing is making the emergent whole of what we are all contributing to, we're entitled to it. Yeah. We just are, right? And it should track. The other thing is, if you want people, actually, this is important. The failure of Marxism is that it punishes the productive, so you don't end up with productive people, because why would you be one? Same thing is going to happen intellectually. When AI is the smartest kid in the room, and what it's doing is phrasing your own insights better than you can, then what's the point of contributing, right? So the point is, okay, that's a short run. You've got AI. It's now got the ability to cover, every topic on Earth and to do so without making a grammatical error, right? Okay. But then the point is, all of us who studied long and hard in order to be able to see with greater clarity in some realm that matters, well, what's the incentive to do that exactly?